What's up? I'm Coach Dan Blewett. On today's video, we're going to talk about what a shortstop is, what a shortstop is not, and whether you or your kid is going to be good enough to play shortstop long term, and why he might not be getting the playing time at short that you think he deserves. This is a big question. I think a lot of parents, they ask, hey, my kid should get more reps at short, or why isn't he getting recruited at short? And it is a problem. I don't think players and parents understand the demands of these positions at the higher levels and what it takes to stick there. So let's go over a couple questions that you can ask yourself and be honest about them. And we'll see if that really if your kid kind of fits the mold based on these questions. So question one, is your kid the most athletic player on the team? If you look at Major League Baseball, shortstops at the Major League level, and granted we're talking about youth baseball or high school baseball or even college baseball right now, but at the highest level, shortstops and center fielders are by far the most athletic players on the team. Everyone's athletic at that level. But guys like Francisco Lindor, Dansby Swanson, these players are super athletes, and they have lots of talents physically. So that's the first question to ask. If your kid is not the best athlete on your team, chances are he's going to have a really tough time sticking it short as he gets older. Question two, does your son have a cannon for an arm? If your son doesn't have a rocket arm, it's going to be really tough for him to stay a shortstop as the levels progress because the game gets really, really fast. You probably saw Ronald Acuna Jr. beat out a ground ball. Now that shortstop, Didi Gregorius, he took his time on that one, and I'll link to my description or in the description to that video that I kind of talked about where that broke down and why Acuna beat that. But when you talk about runners like Trey Turner running 31 feet per second down the first base line, you've got to have a really strong arm, even on routine ground balls, to get players out at the higher levels. And that game gets real fast, real quick. So does your son have a really good arm? If not, he's probably not going to be able to stick it short. Question number three, is your kid extremely dependable? Extremely dependable. This means all the routine plays are made. And they'll make, above average plays, some of those really exciting plays once in a while. But really the biggest thing about shortstop is being super dependable. You can have amazing range and amazing arm and make some of these highlight reel plays. But if you don't make the routine play almost all the time, then you're just not going to be able to stick it short. Remember that 80% of hitters are right-handed. So that means when they roll over ground balls, they hit that routine ground ball in the infield, it's going to the shortstop more often than not because they're right-handed, and when hitters are fooled on their front foot, they'll ground it to the pull side, which means typically the shortstop. Question four, does your son have the best range on the whole team? Again, this goes back to being the best athlete on the team. If your kid doesn't have tremendous range, he doesn't have a chance of playing shortstop. So if your son is kind of slow-footed, but he's got a really good arm and a really good glove, he's going to have to play third, or maybe second. But second base also has to have amazing range. They have to be really good glovesmiths as well. So you have to be honest here. Again, if they don't have great range crashing in on ground balls and making some of those tough plays on the run, and going back on pop-ups and really ranging deep into the outfield, shortstop's just not going to be for them. They're not going to be able to get enough outs that your team needs, especially, again, as the game gets faster. Question five, does your son have great instincts and field vision? Again, shortstops, they're running around, they're commanding, where the other players are going to go, where the ball is going to go. They've got to line up for cuts. They've got to read the ball off the bat. They've got to have a strong vision of what happens in the game. That's what I'm calling field vision, kind of like a quarterback. And they've got to have great instincts. That means getting good jumps on balls, all that stuff. So if they don't have that, if they just have some raw tools, sure, they can develop it. And if they get time at short, then that will improve. But some players just have better instincts than others. Some players just aren't as good at reading the situation, all that stuff. So that's something also to consider. That's less of a physical tool, but it is definitely a thing that shortstops have great instincts and a great baseball IQ. So now's the time to ask yourself, are there any no's here? Now, if you're playing 11U baseball, some no's are not necessarily going to cancel your kid out from playing shortstop ever again. But if you're at a little bit of a higher level, or your team's not that great and your son's not good enough to play shortstop on it, or he just doesn't really have a very good arm, he's not very fast, doesn't have great range, doesn't make a lot of plays, it's probably not going to be a good fit. I mean, the thing here, and obviously players will get better as they get older, but I mean, look, this is what a shortstop has to do. They've got to have essentially the best range, glove, arm, most dependable glove on the field, and they've got to be an infield leader. So, it's pretty rare to be a legit shortstop as it is. Who can stay there as the level increases. And what they say is that when they draft infielders, they don't draft second baseman so much. They do draft third baseman a little bit, but even then, not as much. Really, they draft shortstops. So when you talk about if all of the major leagues was going to draft 20 college shortstops or 20 college infielders in general, just hypothetically, they would draft 20 shortstops, because shortstops are going to be, they're going to have a stronger arm, they're going to have better range, they're going to have better glove work typically than any second baseman out there. That's why he's playing short and the guy on his same team is playing second. And they're going to be able to add some weight to him. He can pack on some muscle and maybe play third if he can't stick at shortstop. But essentially, they draft only shortstops and third baseman within reason, because third base is a little bit different than second base. But again, it's really rare to play shortstop at the next level. And if your son is having a tough time sticking at short now, like he's just the third best infielder on a 14U team, or he's backup on a 16U team, or he's only playing second base on a good travel team, he's probably not going to be able to play short in college. I mean, you just have to be honest with yourself. If you're not good enough to play on your own little league team, if you're not the best player on your own high school team, if you're not the best player, in the infield on your summer ball team, you're just not going to be good enough to play in college at that position. Now, there are some exceptions. Sometimes there are just amazing teams where you have a legit Division I kid who's going to go D1 and he's playing short, and you could definitely play at that level, but you're stuck behind him, so you're playing second. There are certainly some times that happens, but for the most part, if you can't start in youth baseball at one position that you want to, if you're not good enough to start in varsity baseball, or if you're not good enough to start in travel baseball, you're just not going to be good enough to play in college, where the funnel really narrows. We're talking about these colleges are picking from all the best kids, in a huge radius. This is a really narrowing of the funnel. And so basically, when you think about this, like even for a Division III or Division II school or junior college, these kids who play short for those schools. It doesn't all have to be D1. These are like the best shortstops in the county are going off to play D3 baseball and actually be a shortstop there. So you just have to remember that that's the standard, and every parent, and I think unfortunately there's more parents than ever who don't get it, who don't understand baseball and playing time and all this stuff. That's why I did this video. But shortstop is a extremely important position, extremely important. If you have a bad shortstop who's got poor range, who makes a lot of errors, who just can't go get the ball, who can't throw a runner out from the hole, your team gives away outs every game. And if you give away an extra out this inning, an extra out that inning, it eventually comes back to becoming a big rally. You can't give 4 outs in an inning to a really good hitting team. They'll just kill you. So that's where, again, having a really great shortstop, they're more rare than you realize. And chances are, if you're watching this, your kid's not good enough to play shortstop at the highest levels. He just probably isn't. And that's okay. And I'll have other videos that talk about this, about finding your best fit as a position. So just because you can't play short in college doesn't mean you quit baseball. You could play third. Maybe you're bigger and you have a really great arm, but you're just not as fast with your feet. Your glove's not quite as good. Shortstop's not going to be for you, but you might be a great third baseman. And vice versa, maybe you're not quite as fast, don't have quite the strong arm, but you might be an amazing second baseman, and you might be able to play college that way. So not playing short is certainly not a career death sentence by any means, but only the best kids get to play short. And of course, in youth baseball, coaches should mix players around, and they should do that. But once you get out of that mixing players around phase, your kid might not get to play shortstop anymore. And, like 14U, that's typically the time where you start to mix players around a little bit less, because it becomes so important to make the routine play every time with a great center fielder, a great shortstop, great catcher, where now you just can't really afford to put a bad kid at short. That happens. And that's probably around 14U, 15U, 16U, stuff like that. Depends on the level of the team and of course what the team wants, and the coaches and the players. The level of competitiveness always dictates that. But again, it's something to remember, that you've got to have all of those really high level skills to play short and to stick there as the level increases. So you might be a junior varsity shortstop, but you're not good enough to play varsity shortstop because you don't have the arm strength to get those faster runners out, and that happens. Or you can't make that play in the hole reliably enough, and that gives a team a 4th out. Those are the things that happen. So the players that play college shortstop are really special athletes. And the guys that play pro shortstop are really special athletes. And you'll see guys who are SEC shortstops who get converted to second base or get converted to third base in pro ball because there's someone better than them and they don't get to start at high A or they don't get to start at shortstop at double A. And so it's either ride the bench or we can make you a second baseman. Which one do you want to do? Because you're probably not going to go take Francisco Lindor's position in the big leagues, right? There's only one eventually. So hopefully this video was helpful. I think it's important for parents and players, even if you didn't like the message of this video, to understand what's going to happen as the level of baseball increases if you want to have a good career. And that entails finding your best fit, finding positions that fit you, not whining about it. And if you don't like, again, if you don't like where you are on the field, go practice. Don't complain about not getting enough time at shortstop. Have you taken 100 ground balls every day all summer before your games? If you haven't, then that's something to go do because typically the best players are the ones who practice the most. All right. So thanks again for watching. I'm Coach Dan Blewett. Be sure to subscribe to the channel below. You'll find links to other resources, my books, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.